Hello, and welcome to our Friday section of class, which looks a little bit different than our Monday and Wednesday sections. We're obviously not face-to-face. I'm posting these videos that you watch at your own time. What I'm trying to do here is a couple things. One is, if we have to go to online format because of COVID-19 pandemic, then this gives us a taste of what some of that will look like. So we're kind of testing it out. That way, if we do have to transition, it's not a crash transition like happened last spring. So yeah, here we are. I'm going to be posting a homework, and I'm going to get some stuff going on a discussion board. So there are going to be different ways that we try to interact with each other when we're doing things more online. So Fridays is a little bit less interactive when it comes to lecture covering the material, but hopefully there's a little more interaction through both the homework and the discussion board. So one highlight, what I'll do in these lecture videos is talk about some of our big points. And one of our highlights from chapter 1 is this idea of trade-offs. So trade-off, it's something we have all around us. Whenever we make decisions, basically, we're choosing between different options. So a trade-off is when you have different options and you have to give up something to do something else. That's a trade-off. And it happens with little decisions. You know, do I want to make my coffee with a drip coffee machine or use it with a French press? There's trade-offs involved in a decision like that. Even though it's not a big decision, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, right? But still, there's a trade-off. If I make it with a French press, it's going to take a little bit longer. It's not going to make quite as much, so I'll actually have to make 2 rounds of it, so both me and my wife have enough coffee and we're not fighting over it. If I make it with the drip coffee machine, I get it loaded, I push a button, it does its thing, I don't have to think about it, it makes plenty for both of us. But there's a benefit to the French press. We like the taste of it more. So there's a trade-off, right? Do I go for convenience versus better taste? So that's a trade-off that you often have when you're choosing what to eat for dinner. Things like that, right? You can go with a convenient, easy thing, or you could go with something that might taste a little better but would take a little bit more work or would cost a little bit more money. Those are the sort of trade-offs we face in our life all the time. Now, it's important in economics to think about trade-offs in much the same way that the field of probability theory, it developed when these mathematicians were thinking about games of chance, about gambling sort of games, right? And the key breakthrough for probability theory is when they realized you could map out all the potential options. Say you're flipping a coin, it can be heads or tails, right? Those are the only 2 options if you're flipping a coin. And by mapping out those 2 options, they could then put probabilities on them and say something about what could happen. We don't know what will happen, but we know kind of how likely each of those things are. 50% chance of heads, 50% chance of tails. But you need to map out both of those paths to be able to systematically think about what's going on. The same thing is true in economics. We need to think about trade-offs because people are making these decisions. That means they're giving up certain things in order to get other stuff. And we have to kind of map out what those options are, what the trade-offs are. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to systematically look at behavior to understand the decisions people are making. So that's why trade-offs are such a key aspect of economic thinking. So one place we'll see that come up over and over again in this class is there's a trade-off between improving environmental quality and having economic activity that gives us goods and services that we want to have. So I've already mentioned in class that that's kind of what I see as a key trade-off underlying a lot of the stuff we'll talk about. So keep an eye out for that. The homework I'm posting is actually going to be asked you to find a news article in the popular media and to identify a trade-off that's involved in that issue. And it could be a big issue with big trade-offs. It could be a smaller issue and there could be smaller trade-offs. And there may well be multiple trade-offs involved. The article I posted in the news articles folder about the Pebble Mine in Alaska, there are actually a lot of different trade-offs involved in a complicated situation like that. But one of the key ones would be, well, there's a trade-off between getting more gold and other precious metals out of the ground versus having more salmon living in these waterways. So that's one of the trade-offs that you could identify if you were looking at an article like that. I will see you guys soon.